What's up, Zach here, and today I have got the adidas D.O.N issue 7. This is an interesting model, especially coming from the 6, just kind of seeing where the D.O.N issues have landed versus it being more of like a utility shoe now into kind of more of the comfort aspect. But all in all, some good, some bad, pros, cons, but let's get into all of them. Number one, in the uppers, it does have a shroud, which doesn't work anymore, but it does have a shroud, and it does have internal cuff lace eyelets. Now, the thing with that is number one, you're not gonna get a runner's knot into that. So lockdown on these, honestly, heel slippage was mild, just was able just to kind of move around in there. Even after some break-in, was able to move around in there with the shroud up, the shroud down, and even with some of the pods of foam everywhere, which I thought was kind of weird because typically with Adidas, when you get those huge pods of foam in the rear foot, you're not moving around. They kind of compress around both sides of your Achilles really well. Now, obviously I didn't slip out of it. It wasn't severe. It wasn't anywhere near like I thought it was gonna come out, but I could feel a little movement in there, so we'll say mild. The one thing though I did have was lace irritation on these. On my right foot, on the inside of my ankle, right where this cuff comes, right here, you can actually see the foam of the uppers right there. And that, sometimes it would hurt, sometimes it wasn't. It kind of depended on how I got my foot in there. If I cranked the laces down, to try to get less slippage, this would hurt. If I didn't, then it didn't. It was really weird because the rest of the uppers very comfortable, the rear foot very comfortable, that one area. And it was only my right foot, was not my left, it was just my right. So I thought that was kind of weird. The upper is like the shroud of the upper is the outer layer. It actually is kind of like a woven foamy outer layer. So yeah, you look at the breathability test on these things and yeah, I mean, they hold on to some moisture pretty good. If you open the shroud up though, the fog does start coming out through the sides of the tongue. The tongue is gusseted pretty aggressively, but there are spaces, but in between the inner layer, that booty liner, and then the straps from the cuffed lace eyelets, and then the outer layer of it, there are enough places, for heat and moisture to egress if you have the shroud down. So unzip them if you don't want to have a ton of moisture. Now, the other thing I noticed is on the tongue, they've got these 3 pads. Now you can actually cuff your knot under this or put it on top. I didn't find that lace irritation on that part of my ankle was a problem no matter what I did, so I don't really think it matters. Like I said, it was on the inside of my ankle. Right, and like I said, there's actually a little pod of foam there too. And you would think there'd be no irritation there, but I think maybe even as I broke them in a little bit, I was just starting to push through into that. So maybe that's where it was at. But all in all, maybe a little bit heat trapping and a lot of material in the uppers. But even if you just throw some moleskin over that little area, if you're gonna crank these down, I think that would solve it right there, no problems. But all in all, the rest of the uppers, comfortable, just maybe a little bit heat trapping. All right, but getting into the midsole teardown, what a shank, oh my God. The actual, the arch support you see on the bottom, that almost looks like it has the woven fibers there, almost that faux carbon fiber. That's just foam, foamy plastic, maybe a little bit harder foam, but on the inside, man, I mean, it's not like they have to hide anything. That thing is beefy, my God. And you got a full bed of Adidas Light Strike, which is actually very doughy, very comfy in this one, this formulation, pretty darn good. And then Light Strike Pro, you just get a little slab of it here in the forefoot. Now the tensiometer only took 45 newtons to get this thing up to 45 degrees. And if you look here, I mean, it just, like I said, it right in front of that shank, you can kind of see how I'm doing right here. That's right where it's bending, is right in front. And I think that that Light Strike is what's allowing it to bend so easily. Honestly, on torsional stability, it's appropriate. That's not bad at all. That's kind of right what you want. A little bit of movement there, but not a ton. On the bounce height test, interestingly enough, only 26 centimeters in the rear foot, then 31 in the forefoot, a little bit of influence there from the Light Strike Pro, more of that thermoplastic stuff versus just, that mixture EVA, TPU Light Strike. And so, yeah, I mean, kind of a typical Light Strike shoe, right? Not super bouncy, right? Not super resistant to bending forces, just light. And in this case, in this formulation, very, very comfortable underfoot. Honestly, the underfoot feel on these, I thought was actually outstanding. Sometimes Adidas, the Light Strike, it feels great. Sometimes it just feels like a very light, kind of like nothingness underneath you. I want to say, it doesn't feel like cardboard, it doesn't feel like a brick, it doesn't feel like anything sometimes. In these ones though, I do like that formulation, but not seeing much in the bounce height test or that tensiometers because It is just a light, more comfortable feeling foam, but that shank in the middle is, I think, is doing the lion's share of the work for this shoe. All right, beginning into the outsole tread, this is really similar to the 6. You got a radial pattern in the forefoot, very, very thin tread, and then a separate decoupled pod in the back with another radial pattern broken up, a little more of a linear pattern. It's kind of a horizontal cross pattern. Now on the grip test ramp, only slipped at 34 degrees. Wasn't that super high. It was kind of like right in the middle, lower middle. When I had them on foot, they got a little bit of give to them, but they're pretty confident in terms of grip. Like I had no issues. The one thing is the tread is so narrow. The durometer is not very high either. It's like 13.8. Look at this thing on the outsole durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper. Yeah, I mean, millimeter damage on that. The bird just kind of beats that up. And so good indoor shoe. I don't know how durable it's going to be. Even I don't know how durable the light strike's going to be either. I mean, that shank's going to hold it up. So I shouldn't say that because the shank here is going to really help that. So I would say you might get a little bit of wear here in the heel, but also, like I said, the tread, you're going to want to keep that new, keep it on indoor courts. But I like the grip profile. It wasn't too sticky, but it was confident all the way. So yeah, I mean, just, it's kind of like the Fresh Foam BBV 2, right? Little give, but still pretty darn confident. It does pick up dust though, so there is that. So you're gonna have to keep wiping them down. But if you keep them clean and keep them, new, right? You don't wear them past their life, they're gonna give you really, really solid grip, especially because these 2 tread pods, we'll talk about the fit, but the 2 tread pods are pretty wide set on the bottom of the shoes. There is a lot of real estate that you have on both pods. So all in all, and even though the flange isn't too crazy, very stable in terms of grip. So I'd say more stable grip, not super sticky grip, put it that way. All right, let's talk some fit of the D.O.N issue 7. Number 1, it's got a 12-degree in flare, which is, it's starting to get up there. Pretty true length though, at 28.8 centimeters. Then 9.8 centimeters of metatarsal width, then 10.6 toe box width, and a toe box taper of 35 degrees. So all in all, pretty mellow shoe in the forefoot. I would say it doesn't look like it's a mellow shoe. I mean, look at it from the top down, it looks pointy, but on the inside of it, it's really not, it's not that bad. I'd say narrow, medium foot. I'd go true to size. If you are narrow and want to get a better lockdown, and you don't have super long toes, and I think you could go down a half size, but you might be scrunched, right, a little bit. You'll break it in, but that's a play maybe to get a little bit better lockdown. You can go true to size, medium go true to size. A 2E, I'd be going true to size just to get the lockdown. You'll break them in eventually. They might be a little bit tight at first, but I think you can break those in. A 4E, I'd be going up 1/2 size on these. Like I said, I think if you can get these true, then the lockdown is going to be quite a bit better versus if you've got to start going up those half sizes, because then those pods of foam are going to hit you better, or at least somewhat do their job versus, if you start going up and up and up, and you're going to start, I think, moving around. I think then the heel slippage would be moderate, put it that way. In terms of the snake bitten foot, in terms of any lumps, bumps, bruises I bring into the court here, I would say in terms of a shoe for just kind of all around comforts you can fit an orthotic in, especially that shank is fantastic. Forefoot paint, I like it because of the Light Strike Pro. In the forefoot, I think with a dual density plus an orthotic in there, I think it's okay. Plus, it's such a wide base, the tread base in the forefoot and the rear foot, resting position eversion, 0. Loaded 0 degrees. So, I mean, they are very stable for a decoupled tread shoe, and that is a feat of engineering there. And so, you're gonna have good stability in the forefoot. I think in the rear foot for heel pain, I think when they're new, they're gonna be just fine. I think as they get older and you start breaking down that foam, I think that's probably when either you're gonna make sure you have an orthotic in them, or maybe I would go with something more in the Boost family if you're gonna be going with Adidas. Adidas has so many basketball shoes that have really good for heel pain, so it's not like you don't have choice, put it that way. But I think as a new shoe, I think you're just fine. If you have an orthotic in them, I think then, I think they're just fine. Just like I said, with Light Strike, always gotta watch out a little bit for breakdown. It's not the most durable foam out there, but it is nice and light. It is nice and bottom light. And I'll say for a shoe with this much material on, this much going on with it, it does not feel heavy. It starts to feel a little boggy if you're sweating a lot, but just in and of themselves, if you keep the shroud down, they honestly feel pretty bottom light, and that's Light Strike's best attribute, is it always feels bottom light, right? You never feel like you're hauling a brick, right? And when the upper is the heaviest thing, remember they're wrapped around your foot, so you're not feeling that weight as much versus if we're all on the bottom. So in and of that, I love it. Plus with, like I said, the huge shank, you know, for the torsional stability, a bottom light shoe with really nice torsional stability profile, then yeah, I think they're great. And like I said, underfoot comfort, you know, at least for now, it is absolutely fantastic. So love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. I know this was a much requested shoe. It's been tough getting reviews out, just having to build up the new studios and get everything going with the channel. So I am starting to catch up through the backlog. Plus there was all the new releases that came out that I had to get to as well. So like I said, I'm building everything up and I'm ramping back up to pretty normal schedule here. So I think it's been pretty normal now for the last week in terms of what I'm seeing here. You will start to see it as the videos come out now in the weeks ahead, but already for me as I'm filming the videos, it's getting a little bit more normalized. So like I said, love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you do want to see any of the shoes on the wall, because this shoe is going to go right up on the wall now, you can always take a look at the back of the studio to see where all the shoes are, what all the shoes that I have reviewed on this channel. So someone asks, have you reviewed the blank? Well, you can just come right here and find it on the wall. So if you want to check out any one of these shoes, I'll leave a video linked right here. Make sure you subscribe down below. I'll see you in the next video.